Yo, what's going on, guys? Today I want to make a pre-season 7 tier list to the items in Paladins. I want to do this pre-season to really give us a judgment on what we should be expecting to come from these items right before the season. Now, the season drops, I'm going to be posting another more accurate tier list around 100 games. So let's just go ahead and get into this pre-season 7 tier list. Starting off with Arcade Warding, I think this is going to be a B tier item. I think a lot of abilities are not really the main focus of like most characters in the game. They're usually doing damage with their weapons and then adding on to that damage with abilities. Now 36% for 250 credits is insane. It's absolutely absurd. Spending only 750 on 36% is really good, but I don't think too many characters really benefit from only countering abilities. Now, on the other hand, we have armor plating, which I think is going to be one of the best items in the entire game. This is 24% for base price of 275, and I think it's going to be very solid. What it does is it reduces damage taken from weapons by 24%. So everybody who just holds M1, you're going to be taking 24% less damage. Now, this is going to be especially good against snipers who really rely on just picking you off. Now, that 24% mitigated is going to be a lot harder to just pick you off. So I think this item is going to be one of the best, if not just like a almost overall better Haven, because a lot of damage is coming from those in-hand weapons. So you're going to be mitigating more than just 18%. Next is a Bloodbath. Now, this is going to be an insanely good support item, and I already have an idea of what the best support meta build is going to be. But overall, Bloodbath, we'll see a bit of a nerf to the overall characters in the game. But when you put it on a support, it's going to be almost an S tier item. Other than supports, though, I'm going to have to give it a low B tier, because you really only benefit from this if you are getting elims and your other friendlies are going to be getting kills. Other than that, if you're getting just the kills, you're not benefiting from this any more than you did this patch, meaning it's just going to be more expensive for the same results. Next is going to be Horde. Now, I think a lot of people are going to think this item is good or even great, but I really don't think so. I think it's going to be a C tier item. The reason being, if you're buying this item first, you're only going to have slots for 3 items, but you're getting these items quicker, meaning you're going to be maxed out on items, and then you'll just have an empty slot because you have Horde, which is not doing anything for you anymore because there's nothing else to do with your credits besides buy items. So once you get these items maxed, you might have a good mid-game, but if they have a good mid-game team, your items aren't going to matter too much, which is why I think it's going to be C tier. I think it's going to be really good on support with a Bloodbath Morale Boost Chronos build, because there isn't too much else that supports really need. So I guess we'll see how it goes, but I think it's around a C tier item. Meditation. Honestly, I want to make an F tier for this item specifically. I don't think this is a good item in any which way. If anything, I think it's a very poorly designed item. It's old veteran, and the reason I think it's poorly designed is because it promotes bad gameplay. It promotes you sitting out of combat, meaning you're not going to be doing much. So if you have a healer on your team, they're either going to have to go out of their way and leave the combat to heal you, when they could be healing the people actually fighting, or you could stay in combat without this item and just get your healing from your support. I think it's a very nichely designed item, but I overall think this is just promoting bad gameplay on top of also just being a generally bad item. You're not going to get too much value out of this, as when you're out of combat healing, you're usually going to get full anyway, and all this does is make it faster, so you could get back to combat quicker. But overall, I think this is just honestly the worst item in the game, so I wouldn't recommend buying this at all. Next is going to be Sentinel. Now, this reduces the effectiveness of slows, knockups, and knockbacks by 75%, and on elimination, gain a 450 health shield for 5 seconds. I think this item is going to be a pretty solid item, and I think it's going to be at the top of B tier. The fact that this counters slows, knockups, and knockbacks specifically is going to be really useful, but there isn't too many knockups and knockbacks in this game. What is going to be especially useful is the slow effect, but on top of it's also going to be a very good snowball item. You're going to see a lot of characters like Caspian, Vatu, even the new 7, or someone like Koga, who just buys this item and snowballs the entire team because he's very good at getting a pick. And then he makes it even easier to get a second pick and a third pick and even a fourth sometimes, because they're going to have a 450 health shield on top of maybe even running the new life rep. So we'll see how that fares. I think it's a very solid item. I think it definitely has potential to be one of the best, but I think for now it's a very safe placement to put it at B. The next is Trigger Scent. This is going to increase your total damage dealt by 15% for 5 seconds after getting a kill. I think this is going to be at the top of C tier. Reason being, I don't think 15% is significant enough to really do much. And let's say you're playing somebody who has mostly in-hand weapon damage, and people are just buying Arcane Warding. Is that what it's called? I'm not too sure. Whatever this one is, at the top, they're just going to fully counter it. 15%, they have 24%. Okay, now they're only mitigating about 10%. You're still getting that all of it mitigated. So it's a really rough item to buy, and I think it may have its potential if not many people are going Arcane Warding. But other than that, I don't really seeing it be too useful. I could be wrong, but that's just my take on it. Unbound reduces the duration of all crowd control, except for slows, knockups, and knockbacks, by 25%. I don't know how much this scales, because it doesn't say. Oh, I put the wrong one in. I meant to put the old Illuminate there. So this is Unbound. I don't know how much it scales. I think it scales up to 75%. They didn't put it on the patch notes. But 75%, it's just old Resilience, and I think this is going to be another A tier. It's just Resilience, but without the slows, knockups, and knockbacks. Again, there aren't too many knockups and knockbacks in this game, especially on meta characters and support or tank. And I think with a Con nerf with his knockup and throw, I think it really will just depend. I guess we'll see. But maybe it could be a top of B tier. I'm going to put it at top of B tier. I think they're both really competing. Next is the buff Death Dance. I think this is an overall decent item, and I think it's going to go to the top of C tier. You're not going to get too much use out of this item in general, but now that it's buffed, you're going to be able to build it a bit more often on those niche cases, whether it's combat, medic, pip. You're going to see this item built almost every single time on Betty, which is really nice. It's going to make it a bit easier for her to build. Maldamba, stuff like that. You're gonna see it a bit more on those characters. It's just a quality of life, I would say. Honestly, I don't think this item should have been 250 in the first place. So we'll see. The new Guardian. I still think this is a very bad item, but I don't think it's F tier anymore, and I think it's gonna be a D tier. Massive buff. Now this affects all shields. I don't know what they mean by that. I didn't know it didn't affect all shields, but still going. Increased scaling from 30% to 60%, meaning it has double the effect. The issue is they buffed Wrecker, and the price is decreased from 300 to 250, meaning max price is 750. I think this is fine. I think if you see that everybody has max items so they don't have Wrecker, you can go and buy Guardian, you're going to get more value, but even then, it doesn't really do much. Wrecker did get a buff this patch, and I think that makes it even harder to build Guardian. It is a very nice and welcoming change because now it takes tier 2 Wrecker to counter full Guardian. But even then, it's still kind of a waste of credits, and one Wrecker still pretty much destroys any shield that it comes by. So we'll see how it fares. I think it definitely needs an entire rework. I don't think Guardian as a concept is going to do well in Paladins, but we'll see how it fares. Next is a Life Rip. Now, Life Rip is getting buffed to 60% of damage dealt that you get heals from. Still not unaffected by Cauterize, but that's okay. And the price was increased from 200 to 225. I think this is going to be a solid item actually now. Maybe even a B tier. From C tier, you're not going to see too much value from these items, and you're not going to see them built that often. But Life Rip, the new Life Rip version, I think you're going to be seeing it built quite a bit actually. It's 60% of all damage dealt, and the price increase is definitely hurtful, but I think it's still fine. In 60%, you're building this item on quite a bit of characters, let's say BK, Koga, Lex, etc., who can just absolutely abuse basic attacks, or people who have abilities that also proc basic attack items. But it also is damaged out, so we'll see how it fares. I think it's going to do really well, and I think it's definitely going to be a bottom of B tier, maybe above Bloodbath, but we'll see how it fares. Next is Master Writing, going down to 225 instead of 250. I think this item was already pretty solid, but it's seeing a bit of a buff. Now, most maps you don't really need Master Writing, but on the maps you do, it's a very, very useful, and this is going to make it a bit nicer to build. I think it's a top of B tier item above these two. Actually, I'm going to put them below the CC immunity items. I think it's a very just nice buff. It'll help you build it on those maps you really need it, but it doesn't really change anything for the maps that you don't. Next is Nimble, getting a price deduction. I actually think this is a really welcoming change. 150 to 125, meaning tier 2 is 250, and then tier 3 is 375, which is absolutely amazing. This item was already a pretty solid item, and it makes it even easier to be built on the characters that need it. Especially, let's say, the best example I can think of is Moji. Moji's a very weak character, but having Nimble makes her just a bit better, and this is going to make her a bit better even more, because it's such a cheap item to build now. Next is Rejuvenate, going from 225 to 250. I still think it's fine. I still think it's a top of A tier item, because the tanks that need it, need it. So this will definitely hurt those tanks, but it's still a good item. I just don't think they should nerf it anymore. I think this is in a good spot where it's at. Next is the new Veteran. I think this is definitely one of the more controversial ones, right? It's going up to 21% max health, and then the price is being decreased. I think this is going to be the best tank item in the game now, and I think that'll be pretty apparent. But obviously, there are counters to it, such as Sky, Tyra, people who have percent health damage are definitely going to benefit from this. But you have people in the tank class who just have really high health pools who are going to get even more health. You're going to see a lot more counter pick Jaggeroths or stuff like that. That is just going to be absolutely running lobbies, because 21% extra health is absolutely insane. It's almost 1/4 extra health. It's crazy. And on those flanks and damages who are a bit squishy or even a bit healthier are going to see much benefit from this. Best example I can think of is Drogoz, who has quite a bit of health. He's going to benefit from this quite a lot. Next is Wrecker. I think this is just going to be a normal, good item. I don't really know where to place it in B tier, but I think it goes in B tier. It just counters shields, and there are a lot of shields in almost every single game, so you're usually buying Wrecker or seeing it on somebody in a match. Not too much to say about it. Now, these last 4 items, ignoring Cauterize, I was just on the list. There are 4 items left. These are just the items we have now. You're going to see Chronos, S tier, obviously. Morale Boost is going to be a bottom of A tier, I think, so better than Nimble. It serves its purpose, but is still a bit rough to build on some characters because their ults either aren't important or they're just really short charge ultimates, so it's not too useful anyway. Bulldozer, bottom of D tier. You're going to be seeing it sometimes when there are deployables on the field, but not too often. And if something like Amani comes up, just shoot the dragon, and you don't really need Bulldozer to make it easier. Next is Lethality. I think Lethality is fine in the use cases it has, but you're not going to be building it too often. So, that's it for the tiers, guys. I will be making another one as soon as Season 7 drops, and I have around 100 games on the new patch. But this is pre-Season 7. We'll be comparing this later. I hope you all have a wonderful day. Drop the sub if you want more educational content on Paladins like this, and I'll see you guys later. Peace out.